Hi everybody, welcome to my Stampin' Peace studio. I'm Knabe and coming to you live on Thursday, July 3rd. Tomorrow is Independence Day, or also known as 4th of July in America, so looking forward to spending the day with our family. Last year we took Riley to her first parade here in Westerville, and she was so tiny. We were looking at pictures the other day. She was so tiny a year ago, but she was really getting into the spirit of it, waving her little flags and that kind of thing. So we're excited to all go to the parade with her tomorrow morning, and then we'll be spending the day at Andrea and John's, hanging outside. John's smoking meat in the smoker. Yeah, we all bring something, so lots of fun. Wondering if you all have any 4th of July traditions. Today is the first Thursday of a new month, which means it's time for me to demonstrate a new 12 by 12 one-sheet wonder. So I'm gonna flip my camera around now so I can get started showing you that. While I'm flipping my camera, please share this live video and invite others to join us today for the July one-sheet wonder demonstration. You can even tag your friends in the comments if that's helpful. This month for July, I am using the Perfectly Pears suite, or which includes the Painterly Pears Designer Series paper. So I'll just quickly show you that. Trying to get this camera just right. So here are the Painterly Pears sheets. I feel like I'm missing one here. There we go. No. I don't know. Here's 5 of them. And, oh, here it is. Here's 6. So these first 2 you can see are the same. They have just a different background color, okay? This is Petal Pink in the background, and this uses Secret Sea in the background. Here's another. And as you can see, not all pears are green and yellow. This reminds me a bit of some old-fashioned wallpaper, but I have come to love it and have used it. On this page, the Perfectly Pears dies do cut out the large pear shapes and the coordinating stem and leaves. They also cut out the pair of P-A-I-R, pair of pears, no pun intended. And then also all of these little petal pink flowers. So that's wonderful that the dies do all that work for us. And then here's this page, great for a scrapbook page, or maybe highlighting a single photo, or even something like an inspirational quote. And then of course we can cut it and use it for cards as well. And I will be demonstrating that in a future Facebook Live or video, how to use this particular page for your cards. And on the back side, we have all these beautiful prints. Okay, so for today's one sheet wonder, I'm using this sheet in particular. It is 12 by 12, and it is the one that has that Secret Sea background, which has become my new favorite. I wish I could get in just a wee bit closer. Become my new favorite blue. So yes, Pat, please keep an open mind, because I think you'll find that you like this when you see some of the things I've done with it. And in my last Facebook Live, which was Tuesday, July 1st, I did make a couple of cards. Here's one with the featuring the DSP, and then here's one that's really featuring just the stamps and the dies. Okay, so lots of fun with that. If you haven't seen it, you can check out the replay here, or it will be posted to my blog and YouTube within the next few days. So as you know, the first thing we do with a one sheet wonder is do the cutting of our 12 by 12 paper. So I'm going to take this sheet, and it is directional, as you can see. So I'm going to turn it to the left one time, or 90 degrees to the left. And I'm going to cut at 4 inches. And then at 2 inches. So now I have, when I turn them back, I have a 4 by 12, or I should say a 12 by 4, a 12 by 2, and then a 12 by 6. And I'm going to start by cutting the 12 inch by 4 inch piece, using it in the horizontal position. And I'm going to cut at 2.5 inches, and then 5 1/4 inches. And these first two pieces I'll be using for card A. So I'm going to set them up here. I do like to set my pieces in the same order that I cut them, because then they'll be in the order I need them for the various card sketches. This 4 1/4 by 4 inch piece will be used for card B. Then I'm going to take this 12 inch by 2 inch piece, and with it in the horizontal position, I'm going to cut it 6 inches. And then each of these pieces, I'm going to cut at 5 1/2 inches. And then using all of these pieces, I will be making 2 cards with card sketch C. Next, I have the 12 inch by 6 inch. I'm just like noticing some comments here. I love it when not only are you connecting with me and me with you, but I see other people connecting. Patricia Arnold and Margaret Rica. It's just so fun to see friends connecting here. So keep it going, keep it going. And meet new friends. Make new friends if you find you have something in common. All right, with the 6 inch by 12 inch piece in the horizontal position, I'm going to cut in half at 6 inches. With the first 6 by 6 piece, I'm going, because it's directional, I need to turn it to the left one time, or 90 degrees to the left. And then I'm going to cut at 2 inches. This 6 inch by 2 inch piece, I'm going to cut in half at 3 inches. And I'll use these to make 2 cards with card sketch D. And then the 6 inch by 4 inch piece, I'm going to cut at 1 1/2 inch increments. And I'll end up with 4 strips that are 1 1/2 inch by 4 inches. And I'll be using these to make 4 cards with card sketch E. Lots of cards, right? The next 6 by 6 piece, I'm going to keep in its original position and cut at 3 1/2 inches. This 3 1/2 by 6 inch piece, I'm turning to the horizontal position, and I'm going to cut at 1 inch increments. Doing this will give me 6 strips, and I'll be making 2 cards using 3 of the strips on each of them with card sketch F. And for these strips, I do want to keep them in the same order that I'm cutting. So here I've got these 3 that will be the first card I use with card sketch F, and then these 3 in order for the second card with card sketch F. And then this should be 2.5 by 6 inch piece. I'm going to turn to the horizontal position and cut in half at 3 inches. And I'll use these to make 2 cards with sketch G. So by the time we finish, I will have made 14 cards. 14 with just 1 sheet of designer series paper. And as always, I've prepared most of my pieces to keep things moving right along. Now this first card is actually a 1 sheet wonder card. Oh, I do need my paper trimmer again. So not a 1 sheet wonder card. They're all 1 sheet wonder cards. It's a fun fold card, okay? I've started with a piece of cardstock that measures 11 inches by 4 1/4. I've scored at 5 1/2 in the middle on the long side. And then on one end, I'm going to cut off 2 3/4 inches. And this is going to be my cut and flip fun fold card. So I'm grabbing the first 2 pieces of DSP that I cut with my 1 sheet wonder, and the 2.5 by 4 inch piece is going to go on this front flap. To set that aside. My 5 1/4 by 4 inch piece will go on the inside of my card base. Just like that. And this is scrap. This is going to go in the middle, okay, on the inside. And it measures 4 inches by 2 1/2. 4 inches by 2 1/2. And when I finish with the layers on the front, when I close up the card, this piece will be hidden. So it's a great place for you to write a personal note on the inside of this cut and flip fun fold card. So it's right in the center of that DSP. I'm going to go ahead and create some layers here, or adhere my layers together, I should say, before I do some stamping. So the secret C that I've cut from that original card base is 4 1/4 by 2 3/4 inches. 4 1/4 by 2 3/4 inches. And then I do want to give you the size of the other. So let me look at my cheat sheet here. The Darling Duckling color is 3 7/8 by 2 3/8. The Old Olive is 3 3/4 by 2 1/4. And then I have this piece of white that measures 3 1/2 by 2 1/2 inches. I'm trying to put this someplace where I can see it, but it won't fall. 3 1/2 by 2 1/2 inches. And before I adhere it to the other layers, I'm just going to stamp a sentiment from the Perfectly Pears stamp set. And I'm going to stamp this with Secret C. So you can see right here, my color combination is Secret C, Darling Duckling, and Old Olive. On the first card, I do use a teeny tiny piece of Petal Pink, but basically all the cards feature Secret Sea and Old Olive. And I'm just stamping my sentiment up there in the upper right corner. And now to my other layers, I changed my cutting blade. So now I'm going to add this to the card front, being careful that I only have the adhesive on the back of this so it goes on this front flap. So for that, I'm going to use a little multi-purpose glue, and here's my trick to make sure that you're putting the adhesive only where it needs to be. We don't want to put it someplace where we're going to end up adhering our card shut. So I put a little line of the glue. You can use any adhesive you want, of course. A little bit close to the right edge. And then on the layers that I'm adhering, I'm putting my glue or adhesive on the left edge. So this way, when I'm adhering this and trying to center it on my card front, that glue is going to stay only behind that left side of the layers, okay? And you can see I made this piece just a little bit smaller, okay, than the largest layer here. And so that way, when I close my card, that white is completely hidden. Good place to write your personal message. Maybe you want to stamp another sentiment or something in there as well. Now for this, I went ahead and I stamped this trio of flowers. I guess it goes like that, trio of flowers, in Petal Pink ink on Petal Pink cardstock. Then I used this stamp. It's one single stamp, and I stamped the flower centers with Darling Duckling, okay? And then I used my Petal Pink. Did I use Petal Pink or Calypso Coral? Maybe I used Calypso Coral. I'm not sure. I think I did use Petal Pink light and dark shades of Stampin' Blends to color the flowers, to kind of fill them in. Not completely, because not filling them in completely adds a little bit of interest, texture, look, that kind of thing. And I'm just going to adhere my flowers right here on the bottom right corner of my layers. Now I need to do some stamping, and I intentionally wanted to show you this stamping of the pears. So I'm going to stamp or ink up the pear with, I need, I have 2 sponge daubers here, and I put one away and I put the wrong one away. I wanted the one with, oh no, I didn't. No, I didn't. That was Tuesday's Facebook Live. I did a pair with Darling Duckling and Petal Pink. So if you missed it, go back and look at this. This time I'm doing a pair with Darling Duckling and Old Olive. And here's how you get 2 shades or 2 colors on the one stamp. So I've inked up my stamp with Darling Duckling, and now I'm adding some Old Olive ink using my sponge dauber. And can you see the difference there? And you can use more or less, whatever you think. And now I've got this pretty pear. So, and let me show you again, just to be sure you're all understanding the process. But you can do all kinds of different color combinations. Not every pear is green or yellow, as you can see in our designer series paper. So inking up with Darling Duckling, and then I'm just tapping on some Old Olive ink using a sponge dauber. And again, you can do more or less, whatever you want. And then I press it to my cardstock. So you can see, and each time is going to be a little different. This time I went a little bit heavier on the Old Olive. This time just a wee bit lighter. Okay, so there's my pear. And the next thing I'm going to do is stamp the stem and leaves that go with it. And I felt it was important to show you stamping the pears, because obviously when we really like a sweet, we aren't just using designer series paper all the time. Oftentimes we're just using the stamps and the dies. So I wanted you to see that technique of combining the two colors. Then we also have these outline shapes for the large pear. So I'm just going to add some outline with peak, and it does not have to match perfectly. In fact, if you look at the stamp set, things aren't necessarily symmetrical. You get that? So don't worry about matching it up, making it perfect. Okay. So then, of course, the last step for card A, and this is the card that's going to take the longest just because you are doing more stamping and more steps, okay? So I will get this ready, and this wonderful die set gives us all of these dies. I'll be using these two now. This is the die I said cut out the flowers, okay, the cluster of flowers. This die cuts out the small, on that one sheet of DSP I showed you, the pair of pears, right? The two little pears together, that cuts this out. They gave us two dies for the small sentiments included in the stamp set. And then we have these bonus dies, okay? The extras that we can use to kind of add a little bit of extra, I'll say, to our card making. It's fun to have those bonus things. Lets us kind of expand our creativity when we use those. And then I'm just going to die cut these. And I'm taking a little risk here by not using any sticky note or Post-it tape or anything, washi tape, to hold these down. But I think I've got it pretty good. These aside so I don't lose them. And I am going to add my stem and leaves first before I put the pear on my card to finish it off. So I'm just using that dot of glue and putting that stem on top. By putting it on top, it looks like it's coming out of the top of it. rather than putting it behind. So I kind of like that. And then I will add this. I'm going to use some mini glue dots on the 2 leaves. So yes, card A takes a little while, but I figured I'd get this one out of the way first. I designed the cutting of the 12 by 12, so we would do card A first. Fun card, right? And that is known as the cut and flip fun fold. Okay, because we cut off that layer from our card base, flipped it, and then adhered it. Okay, moving on to card B. For this one, I'm using this 3rd piece I cut from the One Sheet Wonder. It measures 4 1/4 by 4 inches. I'm going to adhere it to the left side of my Old Olive card base. It's a standard size card base, 5.5 by 8.5 inches. I've already stamped my sentiment from the Perfectly Pears set, A Good Friend is a Gift, and I punched it with the Labeled with Love punch. I also punched a piece of Secret C with that same punch, and I'm going to cut it in half. And then I'm going to adhere 1/2 to each end. So I kind of create a little border on each side of that sentiment. And I'll do it just like this. And a little here. And I'm going to take my punch sentiment and press it into place. That's all I'm doing. You do kind of want to put your fingers on top and make sure the top and bottom edges of the white are lined up well with the top and bottom edges of the Secret C or whatever color layer you're using. And I'll do the same thing on the other side. I'm really just looking to see that I have about the same amount of cardstock or Secret C showing on the left and the right sides. Again, take your finger and thumb along the top and bottom, making sure that all those edges are lined up well. I'll adhere this with a couple of dimensionals. And then I'm going to finish off this card with some of our low profile sparkle dots. Low profile sparkle dots is what they're called. And I'm going to use the Secret C color and one large, and 2 of the small embellishments. And there's card B. Easy peasy. All right, moving on to card C. With card sketch C, I'm making 2 cards, 2 identical cards. This is where I've used the 6-inch by 2-inch pieces, and I cut a 1/2 inch off of each end. So I'm going to take these 5.5 by 2-inch pieces and adhere them to a layer of Old Olive that measures 5.5 by 2 1/4 inches. Okay, the Old Olive is 5.5 by 2 1/4 inches. As I go through this demonstration, I'm giving you all of the products, all of the dimensions of the cardstock and other pieces that you need to complete your One Sheet Wonder cards. So you should be able to follow this demonstration, you know, watching it again or the replay or whatever, and make all of the same cards if you wish, or switch out the DSP for something you already have, but the One Sheet Wonder and the card sketches will work the same for you. So I'm adding these layers towards the bottom of my card bases. I've already stamped the Sentiment Friend on basic white with Secret Sea cardstock, and I want to show you what I did here. So I stamped it on a strip, I'll say like this. So I stamped Friend on a strip, and then I just punched it like that, okay? So this is what I'm left with. I didn't want the whole tab, and I didn't want to use it in the keeping tabs direction. I wanted to use it the opposite way. So I'm going to add this now, and I'm just gonna tuck this little curvy part under my layers. And I only put my adhesive on the ends of those layers, so it's easy to tuck that edge. Now with these pieces, I'm simply going to cut these in half at an angle. They don't have to be exactly half. And then I'm going to add them to the inside of my card. Just need a little bit of multi-purpose glue. That using that liquid glue gives me that time I need to kind of slide these small pieces into position the way I truly want them. Just like that. And I'll do the same for the second card. You know, when I do my One Sheet Wonders, I'm all about easy cuts and zero waste, right? Doing a set of One Sheet Wonder cards should be fun and stress-free, and I like to use up every single bit of my DSP. Why not, right? And it's kind of fun to find little creative ways to use these very small pieces rather than throw them away. So that is card sketch C. Now for these, I am simply adding a small bow. This ribbon is so pretty. So pretty. It is mossy meadow and gold. So super pretty. I can even picture using this for the holiday season, for making holiday cards and gifts. But it's a good just all around. And that little bit of gold in there really adds some elegance to it, in my opinion. One. And I will point out that the two sides of the ribbon look different, okay? One, the gold is more subtle, more of a shimmer. And on the other side, the gold is more bold or obvious. So use whichever side you prefer. And when you're making a bow, you do, to get the loops and the tails, or especially the tails, to be the same side, you might have to twist one a little bit, which is what I did for each of these. If it doesn't bother you that one tail is showing one side and the other side of the ribbon, no worries. If it bothers you, just do a little twist as you're pulling that second loop through. It's kind of straight. I like to cut my ends at an angle. And then I merely add these to my card front with a single mini glue dot right behind the knot of the bow. Very, 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 very pretty ribbon. So there is card sketch C, and next we're moving on to card sketch D, and we'll make 2 quick and easy cards with this. So again, my card base is Secret C. I'm adding a layer of Old Olive to the front. Old Olive measures 5 1/4 by 4 inches. And then I'm going to pull in my 3" by 2" pieces that I cut from the One Sheet Wonder. Okay, these are 3" by 2 inches, cut from the One Sheet Wonder. And I'm going to mount them on top of Darling Duckling, which measures 3 1/8 by 2 1/8. And then I have a piece of Secret C, and the Secret C measures 3 1/2 by 2 1/2 inches. 3 1/2 by 2 1/2 inches. I often like to use combinations of layers, not necessarily the next 1/8 of an inch or the next 1/4 inch up, just to give it some variety. Mix up those different sizes of borders when you're matting the pieces or layering the pieces. And then these I will add to the card front with some dimensionals. Now on these cards, these 2 cards, which I'm using card sketch D, these 2 cards, I am not adding a sentiment on the front. Okay. Sometimes it's nice to not have a particular sentiment on there, and then you can use it for any occasion, or you can add a sentiment later for whatever you need. And sometimes it's nice just to send a note card, just to say to somebody you're cared about, you're loved, you're on my mind, and write a little note to kind of catch up. I'm not sure which way that went. I guess it doesn't matter which way it went. I guess it went that way. And then I'll finish this off with some of the yellow sparkle dots. And on each, I'm going to, whoops, that's a little higher than I want it. On each, I'm going to add two large and three of the small sparkle dots. Three of the small ones. 2, 3. And it's 1, 2, 3. Quick and easy, right? And pretty elegant, simple. Okay, moving on. For Card Sketch E, we actually will make 4 cards, okay? And they're all the same layout. So I have these 1.5 by 4 inch strips, and I'm going to be mounting these onto 3 different layers of cardstock. So I'm getting all of my 3 colors in. The Old Olive, the Secret Sea, and the Darling Duckling. So my DSP strips cut from the One Sheet Wonder, again, are 1.5 by 4 inches. My Old Olive pieces are 1 3/4 by 4 1/4 inches. Just need to check my cheat sheet, especially for the couple other layers. So 1.5 by 4 inch DSP. Old Olive is 1 3/4 by 4 1/4. And then we'll mount each of these onto Secret Sea. And the Secret Sea has just a narrow border. So it's 1 7/8 by 4 3/8. 1 7/8 by 4 3/8. Now, as I said, as I'm going through this demonstration, I am giving you all of the dimensions for all of the pieces of all of these cards in this One Sheet Wonder demonstration, okay? If you're like me, though, you might like to have the PDF download so that you can download it and keep it on your computer, or you can print it out. There are 2 ways to get my monthly One Sheet Wonder PDF tutorial. The first way is to place a $50 Stampin' Up! Order with me. That's before shipping and tax, and before you use your, or I guess after you use your rewards. And I will send it to you free. Okay, with a $50 Stampin' Up! Order from me in the month of July 2025. If you would like to purchase the PDF tutorial, you can do that at stampinpiece.com for $18. It's not up yet. It will be by 4 o'clock today, 4 p.m. Eastern time. It is complete, but I did not have a chance to proofread it, so I want to do that before I actually post it, okay? If you already placed an order this month, it is the 3rd of July. If you've already placed an order with me of $50 or more on July 1st, 2nd, or 3rd, you too will get that free PDF tutorial, this free PDF tutorial, okay? It's for the whole month, July 1st through July 31st. Now to the left side of my old olive card base, I'm adding a strip of Secret C, which measures, let me double check, 1 3/4. Yes, 1 3/4 by 5.5 inches. And I'm taking it all the way to the folded edge. I love all the prints in the Painterly Pears pack, but I have to say, when I saw each of the individual sheets, it was this particular sheet that I knew I wanted to use for this month's One Sheet Wonder. I think with that Secret C background, it just looks so, I don't know, what do I say, rich and elegant. And then I'm going to add my layers to the center of my card fronts. And for these 4 cards, I'm using Card Sketch E. So once I've completed these 4 cards, I will have made 10 cards so far with my One Sheet Wonder. With the PDF tutorial, you also, that does include supply lists, color photos, dimensions, and instructions for all of the card, as well as the One Sheet Wonder template and the 7 card sketches that I used this month. My daughter does a wonderful job, really wonderful job, not something I even know how to do, making the templates and the card sketches for us. Now, I have already stamped and die cut this congratulations. And what I'm going to tell you is when you're adhering these, because each of the pieces, sure, it's the same size, they're the same size, they came from the same sheet of DSP, but you might consider placing the sentiment in different places based on the designs in the paper. So like I could go here. I feel like this is kind of a blank spot, so I'm going to put that up here. You could put this down here and that still would look nice. This down here would look nice. You know, just kind of play around with them. They don't have to be at the top, the bottom, or the middle is what I'm saying. Wherever it looks good to you is good. So right in the middle, top. I think this one I'm going to go at near the bottom. But just do what feels right to you, okay? Feel free to position the sentiments in different places. And I'm also going to show you, recently in my Stampin' Piece VIP group on Facebook, I asked people, what is their biggest frustration when it comes to stamping or card making? And we got a variety of answers, anything from not enough time to I'm not sure how to do XYZ. And one of the things was I'm not really sure how to place embellishments. So with these 4 cards, I thought I'm going to show a few different ways to place embellishments. So the first one, I'm just going to take a large sparkle dot and place it one on each side of the sentiment. Okay, that's one thing you can do. Now, oftentimes when we're using embellishments, I say we work in odd numbers, okay, 3 or 5. If you're putting something side by side or like on each side of a banner or a sentiment, certainly you don't need to just add a 3rd embellishment because the 2 look just fine, right? You could also do something like, I have to look at my samples, make sure I'm remembering them all. You could do something like this, where you're putting 3 embellishments, one on top of the other, in a straight line. Okay, that's another way. You could do, you could also do it on the other side if you like. There's 3 more, okay? If this were a vertical card, it could work the same way. I might do 3 in a row any of these places, all right? And then what we often do is, how do I want to say, like scatter them, but sort of an intentional scatter, I'll say. Does that make sense? Intentional scatter? I think you know what I mean. So I'm using 1 large and 1 small at the bottom left, and I'm going to be putting some on the right side, 1 large and 2 small. Now, I've got an odd number here, right? Here you might say, well, Mary, there's only 2. That's not an odd number. But the total is 5, which is an odd number, okay? Working in odd numbers, it's been proven that odd numbers are more appealing to the eye. When people do flower arranging, which I'm not very good at, I have a sister, Joan, who is extremely good at just taking cut flowers and arranging them in beautiful bouquets and vases and things. But the rule of thumb with flower arranging is working in odd numbers as well. Okay, so that's where that comes from. All right. So now I have 10 cards completed, and I'm moving on to card sketch F. You get 7 card sketches with this one sheet wonder. This time I'm using those 3.5 by 1 inch strips that I cut from the one sheet wonder. And again, I do want to have them, I'm doing a set of 3 and a set of 3, and I do want them lined up so that they are in order. So they'll be like a puzzle pieces that fit together. So the first thing I'm going to do is stamp another sentiment, again from the Perfectly Pears stamp set. A good friend is a gift. I love this sentiment. Isn't that true? You've got those girlfriends who just really, how do I say? You know, they lift you up when you need it. They're there for you to celebrate all the good stuff in life, but they're also there for you to support you and encourage you and help you through the difficult parts of life. And they're willing to hang out with us in just the boring old day-to-day life too, right? I think that is a definition of a true friend. So a good friend is a gift. And these are going to be vertical cards. I have a piece of old olive for each, and this measures 3 3/4 inches by 4 5/8. Okay, 3 3/4 by 4 5/8. Each of my strips that I'm going to use is 3 1/2 by 1 inch, including the stamped piece. So instead of keeping all 3 of those DSP strips together, I'm separating them, the first 2 from the bottom one, and I'm putting my sentiment in the middle. Now when I add these, I definitely want to use my multi-purpose glue, and I'm going to just set my strips in place gently until I get all 4 strips on and I have a chance to check that I have even spacing around and between my strips. And then I can press them all down into place for good. Anything stamp sets with fruit, DSP with fruit, it always reminds me of my mom. She grew up on a farm, so of course they always had fresh fruits and vegetables. They had an apple orchard, but my mom would say, every summer I would hear her say the same thing. She'd come back from the market or the grocery store with all her fruits and vegetables, and she could literally spend hours like cleaning them, dicing them, making stuff with them. But the whole time she'd be, munching on her fruits and vegetables, especially the fruit. She would say, she's like, oh, I could gain weight just eating fruit. And honestly, I think she could. She ate that much. She loved it. I don't think she did, but if anybody could, it would have been Mom. Notice what I did with that silicone craft sheet. Once I got all my strips in place, instead of rubbing my hand on the strips to adhere them permanently, I just dropped that silicone mat on top and then I pressed it with a flat hand. I do that so that I'm not taking the risk of sliding those pieces around again after I just got them in place. So notice now I've got my liquid glue and I'm just adding them in place lightly. And when I have all 4 of them on, I will check to see if I have even spacing around and between the strips and adjust them as I need to. That's the joy of using, or the benefit of using, liquid glue, is it's a little more forgiving. You have a little time to play with each of the pieces. Okay, I think that looks good. I'll do the same thing. Drop my silicone craft sheet on top and then just press with a flat hand. Okay. I had this tucked in there. And the reason being is when I was designing this, what I did was I didn't know which sentiment I was going to use yet. And I didn't know which color if I was going to stamp on the old olive background or use a strip of a different color. But I needed to check out my placement before I decided all that. So I just cut a piece of white to sort of be a placeholder for me. And then I'll just finish this off, adding these layers to each of the card fronts. putting them in the center. And then I'll finish off each of these cards with a bow. There we go. And this is where, see here how I've got one tail that's got less gold showing and the other tail is showing the opposite side of the ribbon with more gold showing. So this is where I'm just going to twist my loop and then pull it tight. And now I have the tails with both sides showing the same side of the ribbon. Simple as that, just giving that a little twist. Through high school and when I came back from breaks in my college years, I worked at a craft store up in Westlake, Ohio, near my home. It was called Roses, and really that's where I learned to, actually the owner's name was Rose, so her shop was called Roses. It was actually quite a large craft store, but she would often make like big bows for people, like weddings and parties and stuff. But that's where I learned to make bows, small, big, everything in between. But I remember her teaching customers saying, you know, pinch and twist, especially when she was making the great big bows. Pinch and twist. So a little fun fact about me that you probably didn't know. I worked in the craft shop, a craft store, and I learned how to make bows remembering pinch and twist. That was a long time ago. High school days and a little bit in college. Anybody else ever work in a craft store? And who would have thought that I was going to college to be a teacher, but who would have thought I would have ended up doing teaching crafts through Stampin' Up? Never in my wildest dreams. I didn't even know what Stampin' Up was back then. I didn't even know what direct sales were. Isn't that funny how life takes you on different paths than you originally thought? But I love teaching, but I decided to be a stay-at-home mom. And then spent time volunteering at the girls' schools. So I got to use my teaching skills then, and now I do this. And I really love the sharing and the teaching part of this today. All right. Now we have 12 of our 14 cards done, and I'm going to grab the last two pieces of DSP that were cut from the One Sheet Wonder, and my last packet of pieces here. This is a lot to keep organized, a lot to get organized and then keep organized as I'm working. Okay. Once again, I'm doing vertical cards, and on each of my Secret C card bases, I'm going to add a piece of 4" by 5 1/4 inch old olive. But before I add it, I'm going to add a 4" by 2" piece of Secret C to the bottom of my old olive. And you might be thinking, well, Mary, why don't you just cut 2 separate pieces and stick it on your card front? That sounds good, And you'd even save a little cardstock. However, I want to put a piece of ribbon across there. So I need something to adhere it to. So that's the reason why I'm adding 4" by 2" piece of Secret C to the larger old olive piece, because I want to put a piece of ribbon across it. And that doesn't work so well with two separate pieces of cardstock, one on top of the other. I wanted to layer that Secret C onto across there. You want it taut, not too loose, but not so tight that your cardstock is going to curl. And once you've done that, then you can add this much to your card front. Okay, so again, I started with a piece of 4 by 5 1/4" old olive, added 4 by 2" piece of Secret C, and then added my ribbon. Notice this time, okay, for my bows, I used this side of the ribbon, but on these two cards, I wanted more of that gold to be showing. So I used the opposite side then. Notice how I laid out my ribbon, flipped over, and I just put the adhesive where I knew I'd be pulling the ends of the ribbon over. I don't like to put adhesive all the way across for my ribbons on the front, because I think, well, a couple reasons. If you don't get it just right the first time, I don't want to see my ribbons like tweaked at all. I think you get a nice clean line just by adding adhesive to the back and adhering the ends. The other thing is I would not use liquid glue to do that. On most ribbons, they're made of what? Fibers, fabrics, right? We don't want that liquid glue seeping through our ribbons either. Not a nice look. I hope you're picking up some helpful tips in this demonstration. Okay, so our last two DSP pieces cut from the One Sheet Wonder are 2.5 by 3 inches. Okay, 2.5 by 3 inches. And I'm mounting them onto Darling Duckling cardstock that measures 2 3/4 by 3 1/4 inch. Okay, Darling Duckling is 2 3/4 by 3 1/4 inch. And then I'll add these to the card front with my dimensionals. Where did they go? Here they are. Now, I know some of you said you weren't really into the Perfectly Pears DSP, or it's the Painterly Pears DSP, Perfectly Pears stamp set and dies, but Painterly Pears. Not sure I like that name, Painterly Pears DSP. Although you can tell that it looks painted, right? Which is probably how Stampin' Up's design artists start. Oftentimes they start with painting, whether it be watercolors or whatever. It's a very cool thing to see behind the scenes. And then from their paintings, they actually take photographs and match up all the all the colors, Stampin' Up colors. It's really a neat process, I think. And then I've got these little hello sentiments. You can add them anywhere you think they should go, okay? They don't have to go on the same in the same place on each card. How many of you were like, just not into that DSP. And maybe I've changed your mind now that you've seen it used. And how many of you just loved it right from the start? First time you saw it? Anybody? And on these two cards, I will add some of the low profile sparkle dots. Low profile meaning very thin. They keep a low profile on your paper. They don't stand up off of the paper so much. So great for sending. They're not as bumpy. Okay, this is how I did my samples. Do you think I need 2 more? I'm going to try it with 2 more. 2 more embellishments. How about one here? And I'm using 2 different colors just so they show up better on each of the different cardstock colors. Okay, my friends, those are the last 2 cards in this set of One Sheet Wonder cards. So let me bring all the others back in. Again, these are the main colors I use: Secret Sea, Old Olive, and Darling Duckling. You learned how to stamp the, oops, thought I was missing a couple. You learned how to stamp the pear with more than one color, right? Which is fun. So that's card A, card B. Here's card C. I think we can get them all in here. Card D. Card E made 4, set of 4. Card F and card G. So we have a total of 2, 4, 6, 10, 12, 14 cards. 14 cards using a 12 by 12 sheet of designer series paper, 3 colors of cardstock, right? A ribbon, embellishments, and I had 7 different card sketches. And one thing I want to mention to you is keep in mind, especially if you're somebody who places an order and gets the free PDF tutorial, or you purchase the PDF tutorial, you don't have to use the card sketches only with this One Sheet Wonder template. If you just want to make a bunch of these, of course, you're not going to be doing the One Sheet Wonder, but you can pull the card sketch from that PDF tutorial and make just a bunch of these if you want, right? So don't feel that the template and the card sketches all have to stick together. You can use any card sketch anytime you want. Doesn't have to be with the One Sheet Wonder. Alrighty, what do you all think? What do you all think of the One Sheet Wonder, of the DSP, of the cards? Love it, hate it? Kathy says she loves all of the card designs. And Gwen says they're all just beautiful. Beautiful collection. Thanks for sharing. Of course, it's my pleasure. I love sharing with all of you. Lovely cards. Okay, I'm going to give 3 of the cards away. So if you would like to have your name put into the drawing to receive one of the cards made, Please type in the comments now. Let's do Painterly Pears. Painterly Pears. That's the name of the DSP I used for the July 2025 One Sheet Wonder. Okay. Painterly Pears. Type that in the comments now and your name will be entered into the drawing to receive one of the cards I made today. Again, all of the products and dimensions and instructions to make all of these cards, as I just did, are included in this video. However, if you would like the PDF tutorial that includes the supply list, color photos, dimensions, instructions for the cards, as well as the One Sheet Wonder template and each of the 7 card sketches, you can get that free with a $50 order, Stampin' Up! Order from me in the month of July 2025, or you will be able to purchase it in my PDF store at stampinpiece.com for $18. The PDF is not in the store just yet. It is complete, but I did not have time to proofread it. So I'm going to do that now as soon as I say goodbye, and then I will put it in my PDF store on stampinpiece.com. Alrighty? I'm going to scroll real quickly and see if I missed anything. And thank you all so much for watching. Looking to see if I missed any questions. I think I'm good. Okay, everybody. If you're in the USA, happy Independence Day, happy 4th of July. I hope you get to do something fun, or maybe just spend some time relaxing. And I look forward to seeing you next week for another live demonstration. Until then, happy stamping and have a great weekend. Bye-bye.